queen deposits you alongside hundreds of others, all identical, all still. Workers surround you immediately. They lick your shell constantly, coating it with antifungal secretions from their mouths. Without this, you'd rot within hours. You do not move, you do not feed, you do not protect yourself. If the chamber gets too warm, workers move you deeper. If it gets too dry, they shift you somewhere safer. Your first job is not to do anything at all. It is to stay alive long enough to hatch. After several days, the shell opens and you hatch as a larva. You still do not look like an ant. You have no legs, no hard body. You are soft, pale, and curved. A worker lowers her head and feeds you liquid food from her mouth. Then she moves away, and another worker comes to clean your body, because fungus spreads fast in warm, humid chambers. You eat and you grow, and then your outer layer becomes too tight and splits. You molt. The old skin is removed. Your body expands again. This happens over and over through each larval stage, and every time you are still helpless, still fed, still carried, and still being watched by workers who never stop moving. You do not choose when to rest. You do not choose when to eat. You do not even choose where you lie. Your whole world is a pair of jaws lifting you, turning you, feeding you, and setting you down somewhere else. When your final larval stage ends, you stop feeding and the change begins again. In this species, you usually spin a thin silk cocoon around yourself before pupating. Sometimes workers place you in a better chamber instead, where the soil is right for development. From the outside, you look sealed away. Inside, your body is being rebuilt. Your head forms. Your legs form. Your antennae form. Your jaws form. The soft grub shape disappears, and the body of an adult worker ant takes its place. The time this takes depends on the nest temperature. When the nest is warm, development moves faster. When it is cool, everything slows down. Workers keep checking the pupae anyway, moving them if the conditions change. Even while your body is transforming, the colony still has to manage you. You are never fully alone, not even when you are locked inside your own change. Then you break out of the cocoon and emerge pale, soft, and weak. Your shell has not hardened yet. Your legs feel unsteady. Your jaws are not fully ready. This is the callow stage. Older workers surround you immediately, grooming your antennae, cleaning your legs, and removing the remains of the cocoon from your body. You cannot do heavy work yet, but you are already being assigned a place in the colony. You spend your first hours learning the nest by touch and smell. You follow older workers through the tunnels. You stop when they stop. You move when they move. The colony does not explain itself to you. You just absorb it through repetition. Every chamber has a scent. Every tunnel has a curve. Every worker has a role. By the time your shell darkens, you are ready to join them. Your first job is nursery duty. You move eggs from one pile to another when the chamber gets too warm or too cold. You carry larvae to safer spots depending on what they need. You feed them the same way workers once fed you, lowering your head and passing food into their mouths one by one. Then you move to the next. You clean them too, touching them with your antennae and removing anything that should not be there, because the brood chamber is warm and crowded, and one sick larva can spread trouble fast. If a larva dies, you know it right away. The chemical signal changes, and your response is automatic. You pick up the body and carry it away from the nursery, because dead material cannot stay near living brood. You leave it in the waste area and return immediately. As you get older, your work shifts closer to the entrance. The air changes there. It gets warmer, drier, brighter. It carries smells from plants, soil, water, insects, and animals above the ground. The first time you step outside, you stop near the entrance and turn back toward the nest. A pebble, a root, a crack in the soil. Those details become the route you will use to return. Then you move farther out. The surface is huge compared to the tunnels. A blade of grass rises above you like a wall. A stone blocks your path like a boulder. A drop of water falling from a leaf can knock you sideways. You do not go far on your first trip, but soon those trips get longer, and you begin becoming a forager. Now your job is to find food and bring it back. You follow scent trails laid by other workers, pheromones stretched across soil and roots and grass so that you do not have to search alone. Eventually, you reach a dead insect near the trail and touch it with your antennae. You bite one loose piece with your mandibles and try to lift it. If it is small enough, you carry it alone. If it catches on soil or roots, you stop, adjust your grip, and pull again. On the way back, you reinforce the trail with more pheromone. That makes it easier for other workers to follow. If the food is too large for one ant, you return to the nest and strengthen the trail instead. Then other workers pick up the signal and follow it back to the source. The group cuts it apart and carries it home in pieces. You can spend hours repeating that same route. If the source disappears, the trail collapses. If it stays, the colony keeps coming back until nothing is left. But the outside world does not stay still. One moment you are carrying food back to the nest, and the next, the ground vibrates beneath you. You stop. Your antennae move across the air. A spider is hiding under a leaf near the trail, waiting for movement in the soil. It is much larger than you. Your mandibles can cut food and grip other ants, but they will not stop a spider like that. You drop the food and run. As you run, alarm pheromone spreads from your body. Nearby workers react to it at once. Some scatter, some turn back toward the threat. If enough workers are nearby, they may swarm and bite, but if you are alone, your best defense is distance. You reach a root and move underneath it. The spider stops at the edge, then turns away. You survive, but the food is gone. Then rain becomes the next threat. A drop hits the soil beside you. Another lands closer and knocks a worker off her path. Water starts running between the roots. For a human, this is light rain. For you, the ground is changing shape. The trail breaks. The entrance becomes harder to reach. Workers near the nest begin reshaping the openings with soil particles. And if water gets in, brood will be moved deeper to keep it safe. Sometimes the heat is worse than the rain. The soil dries out, the scent trails fade, and the surface becomes harder to read. You keep moving anyway, because the colony still needs food even when the world above it turns against you. Sometimes the threat is not weather. Sometimes it is another colony. Your colony shares the ground with other colonies, and sooner or later, one of their trails crosses yours. You meet another worker head-on, touch antennae, and the signal on her body comes back wrong. She smells foreign. She smells like competition. She smells like a different queen's territory. You both stop for less than a second, then open your mandibles and lock together. Alarm chemicals spread through the trail, and more workers rush in from both sides until the ground turns into a knot of legs, jaws, and bodies dragging each other through the dirt. If your side has more workers nearby, you push forward and reclaim the trail. If theirs has more, you get driven back, and the border shifts with it. Not permanently, just until the next time both colonies find the same food again. A feeding area that was safe in the morning may belong to someone else by evening. As the months pass, your body begins to wear down. Your mandibles lose their sharp edges from cutting soil, dragging food, and fighting on exposed ground. Your legs still carry you, but not as cleanly as they used to. You begin taking shorter trips. Where you once followed trails deep into the grass and around stones far from the entrance, now you stay closer to the nest, lifting smaller fragments, reinforcing nearby paths, and helping with food that other workers already brought most of the way home. You just keep responding to whatever signal is strongest near you, moving brood, shifting soil, carrying food, and filling the spaces younger workers have not reached yet. The colony becomes more practical about where to place you. Less distance, less risk, more small jobs that still matter. One season, the colony begins raising ants that are not like you. You help feed them in the nest for weeks, and even before they are mature, the difference is obvious. They are larger. They carry wings folded over their backs. Their bodies were built for reproduction, not labor. These are the winged males and winged young queens, the alates, and the colony only produces them when conditions are right. On a warm, humid day, movement builds toward the surface. Workers clear the entrance. The winged ants push upward through the tunnels. You stand among the workers, making space as they climb past you into the light. And then they launch into the air with winged ants from other nests nearby. This is the mating flight. Males search for queens in the swarm. After mating, they die. The fertilized queens land, break off their wings, and search for a place to begin. You do not go with them. You remain at the entrance while the sky fills with the next generation, and when the flight is over, the nest closes around you again, as if nothing happened. The nest is quieter after that, but only for a moment. The workers do not wait. They return to brood care, foraging, and repairs almost immediately. Somewhere away from your colony, one of those young queens lands and tears off her wings. She finds a patch of ground, digs down, seals herself inside, and starts laying the first eggs of a colony that does not exist yet. She survives on the reserves in her own body, even breaking down her wing muscles for energy while the brood develops in darkness. Those eggs hatch into larvae. The larvae feed, molt, spin cocoons, and eventually emerge as the first tiny workers, pale at first and darker as their bodies harden, just like you once did. From there, the whole system begins again. Tunnels, brood chambers, food trails, waste piles, repairs, raids, an endless stream of workers doing whatever the colony needs next. Back in your own nest, you keep moving through the dark, one task after another, until your body can no longer keep up. That is what makes it suck to be an ant. Your life is small, your work never really ends, but every tunnel, every trail, every larva, and every new queen exists because thousands of workers like you kept moving.